Hi, Dr. Paul Haider here. You know, how do we live in harmony, in deep harmony with everyone and everything? I think the most important aspect is to think thoughts which are loving and kind and to be nurturing. A lot of times people lash out with words which are unkind. And, I'm amazed how many unkind thoughts I get from people commenting. And I guess my dad raised me in a way he said, not to say unkind things to people. And I think that's important. Even a mother would never say unkind things to her, child of any kind because they know that will do irreparable harm to that person. And we know now with studies showing that anytime we say something to someone, that is actually taken into their body and changes them in powerful ways. We give a compliment, there's an uplifting element of change in our hormones and we feel good. If we say something, terrible to a person, there's actually a degradation of the body, change in our hormones also. So what we do say does make a difference in the world. And what we think, actually, we know that there are micro spurts of energy coming from our brain. And this is actually going out into the world. And this is science now. And every time we have a thought, it actually pulsates out into the world. So it's about what all the spiritual texts have talked about for eons, really. They talk about, filling the mind with loving, kind thoughts and being, as Buddha talked about, we should actually, the only judgment we should do is judging our own thoughts. So I think that's really, really important. And I think it's very interesting that right now we have more people being unkind to people than any other time, I think, in the world. And people are expressing themselves, which is great. And you have, Twitter and all the different social media. But what about what happens when we say unkind things to people? You know, we are actually doing ourselves harm because we actually create our own negative karma with that also. And people just don't understand that. And I think it's really important that we be like Mother Teresa, who was willing to give up her life to share whatever she could with those who were less fortunate. And that is very important. A lot of people dwell on the negative all day long, and that's all they do. This is bad, that's bad, this is bad, and no wonder you see what's going on in the world right now with the Las Vegas and Northern California, all the shootings and that type of thing. It's just kind of crazy because people dwell on that type of thing. And I think it's really important for us, if we want deep harmony in our lives, to dwell on something which is all loving, all kind. And I recommend saying, God's name over and over and over again. And that's talked about in all the different spiritual texts, in fact. Saying Jesus, 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 or Krishna, 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 or Buddha, 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 or, whatever that supreme being is to you, to say that over and over and over again. And that has great power. The name of God has great power. And it is a cleanser also of the mind and also of the karma that we have. And to release that karma in powerful ways. And then we start thinking positive thoughts. And we get out of this cycle of negative thinking, which I think the world is in a cycle of negative thinking right now. And there's not to say not to take a stand and do something, but you can take a stand and do something and not, be in a negative place. Look at uh, many of the greats like Gandhi. I don't think that man ever took a negative stance in his life. I think he was always looking at the positive. And every time anybody put him in a corner and wanted him to say something negative, he actually turned it around to make it so that it was something he could say positive about it. And that's really what we have to uplift not only ourselves, but at the planet at the same time. And we need to do that, especially right now. We're in a dire place in the world. Um, and I think that if we can uplift everyone, and all it would take would be 8 to 10% of us to actually start thinking this way, to change the thinking in the world, and to start meditating on love and peace and kindness and giving and caring. And I think a lot of people who are in the middle ground of not really doing anything would come to our side. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, of course, there is what some people would call evil. And if we allow ourselves to go to that negative thinking all the time, eventually we will open the door to allow evil, that evilness to come in, which is our own gargantuan evil, that which we create within our mind. And so it's important that we cultivate, like a garden, loving, kind thoughts. And, it's like planting flowers. And you want to make sure we get a lot of nice flowers. And we get flowers here, flowers there, purple ones, yellow ones, green ones, yellow ones that have little orange streaks on them, and all kinds of different kinds of beautiful thoughts. And from thoughts, we create loving actions. And that's really important. But once in a while, we get a weed that grows up there, a negative thought, and we just have to reach up and pluck that out, and get rid of that so it doesn't start to proliferate. Weeds take over after a while. I know I'm a gardener, so that can happen. So we have to allow ourselves to find a way, hey, and everyone is different, to cultivate that garden and to allow ourselves to stay on the positive side no matter what's going on. And we are in a schooling right now. This is a school place that we're in this plane of what we call the physical realm. And we have lessons to learn. We can go to the negative side if we so feel to do that, and that's a possibility. Or we can go to the positive side and we'll learn our lessons and move forward into another life and with a higher vibration. And there are different planes of vibration on this physical plane, and across the veil on the other side there are different planes of vibration also. And we finally reach into the higher realms of that vibration. There really is no highest realm, because people on the average don't attain that high a vibration, but they can reach into that which is the higher realms of what we would call God or deity or creator, and be enveloped in that oneness of light. And even many different writers like Dr. David Hawkins talks about this, and also Saint Ignacio talks about this. I think it's really important that we allow ourselves to change our thinking into harmonious thinking with love. And I was I was watching the Muppets Christmas Carol. Love the Muppets. There's a song in there, anywhere there is love, there it's Christmas, and we're coming into the Christmas season. And I think that's one thing we need to promote and expand, is to allow ourselves to have more love in the world. If there's love in the world, there's no way that we can have negative thinking. If there's love in the world, there's no way we can have negative actions. If there's love in the world, there's no way we can have problems in the world, because we will take care of them with positive actions. So it's allowing ourselves to change our way of being, and to see things from a whole different perspective. It's so easy to get caught up in the negative. All you have to do is watch the news. And it doesn't mean you don't have to be informed. Of course, People are going to tell you what's going on. Yeah, you can't help it. You can't. If you live in this life, somebody's going to tell you what's happening. But if you dwell on the negative all the time, it really does a number on our brain, our thinking, and our life. Because sooner or later, we start to feel bad. It's kind of like being an introvert and an extrovert. They actually did a study showing that if you take introverts, people who are, kind of into themselves, don't really deal with people, they're not very happy. But if you take them and tell them, today, for the next 4 or 5 days, you're actually going to play the role of an extrovert, and you're going to be happy and joyous and think positive thoughts and then go out there, and they found at the end of the 5 days that they were happier. Who knows? That's interesting. And if they took extroverts, which were happy, and they told them, now you're going to be introverted, you're going to be thinking about yourself, and not thinking about others, and that type of thing. And then at the end of 5 days, they were unhappy, because they were thinking negative thoughts all the time. So I find it very interesting. If we can change just our own lives by the way we think and become happy or sad, what do you think about it? The chances are that we could change the world just by getting a bunch of people together and start becoming happy thought people. Just making it so that we don't allow negative thoughts to come into our heads. What would happen to the world if everyone started thinking happy thoughts all day long? I mean, what would happen to the wars? I don't see that wars would exist anymore. In fact, I think that weapons would go out of existence. I think that any kind of challenges like hunger and not having housing and things like that, all those things would disappear because we would start taking positive action. And instead of worrying about ourselves and worrying about this and worrying about that, we get up and do things because we're happy about the possibilities of tomorrow. Instead of worrying about what might happen because of this or that, we make a difference in life, and we stand up and just march forward every day. It's not about the big things we do in our lives. It's about the incremental little tiny things that we do in our lives that add up to be something really important. And it's not to say we're going to be Gandhi or any of the great, loving leaders, Archbishop Tutu or somebody like that. But if you actually talk to these people, they were just saying, I'm just doing what I need to do every single moment of my life. And making decisions according to what's coming to me, and making decisions to have positive thoughts all the time. And sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes when we're in the midst of something terrible going on, I think it's really important that we allow ourselves to have that positive thought is to be our anchor in life. It keeps us solid in one place. And that's why rituals are important. Keep the things that in amazing ways solid in our life, like doing meditation every day and doing exercise and taking care of our family, and also, of course, our financial life, taking care of our mind, body, spirit, relationships, social life, getting out with people, financial life, our core beliefs, thinking about our beliefs that we have. All of these things are important. And so I think it's very important that we allow ourselves to have this anchor that keeps us in place. You look at all the great, houses of worship, whether it be temples like, the Buddhist temples or the Christian churches and different things. You ever notice that there's a feeling of being anchored there? There is, and they don't really change them much. A lot of the big cathedrals in Europe, they've been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and They don't change them. They may update them because some things are deteriorated, but they keep them looking the same because it keeps us anchored in a place of love. It keeps us anchored in a place of peace. And we need that in our homes also. We need to have, no, some people would think it would be boring, but I find it when you have some kind of routine, something that makes us feel anchored inside, that makes us feel, um, in a way, it makes us feel loved because we're taking care of ourselves. I had a man the other day. He said, I'm finally doing what I want to do. And he was really overweight. And I said, well, you need to also take care of yourself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And if you don't love yourself, how can you love anybody else? So it's really important to have these rituals in our lives and to think harmonious thoughts of love and caring and nurturing. And that way we can allow ourselves to change the world. And we can do that. I know we can. There's just no doubt about it. So allow yourselves to find that anchor for yourself and change your thinking and pull out the weeds and make a difference in the world. Remember, I love you. And if you care to get a hold of me, all my contact information is down below. Click on Show More. If you care to make a donation, couple different links are there. Patreon if you want to make an ongoing donation, or PayPal if you want to make a one-time donation. And I appreciate that in advance because my wife and I live on a fixed income. And we are still struggling here in Puerto Rico. I'd say most people here still don't have power. Luckily, we have solar that we put in a few months ago, but most people are still running on, generators, and they break down. So if you care to make a donation, that's greatly appreciated. We're trying to help other people. And like I said, all my consultations are always free. And I will get back to writing more articles and that type of thing, but we don't have the internet at home right now. So remember, I love you.